Oh, hey, I saw HD for a second from someone that was MJ. Sorry, I got excited. Hey, hey, those of you that might be tuning in to our recording, welcome to Stormfront Freaks Raw. You're just catching the recording of everything. You're gonna catch we're just getting started right now, and we had two guys that just moved, so they're in a new house. They have a new temporary setup. Brady and Maz, and so we're trying to figure out their setup. But hey, that's what you get when you watch Stormfront Freaks Raw. You're going to get a little bit of everything, but we're excited. We're going to have Jim Williams on tonight, so we'll get started here in just a moment.
By the way, we didn't move together. Just letting you know, he has his own place.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, Brady's not living.
Well, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, but hey, Brady, hey, hand me the ketchup, buddy. You know, it's not like that.
Batman and Robin.
Did I just bring it to a screeching halt here?
A little bit. Oh, yeah, there's Brady. He's bringing his headset.
There, he's got it.
Holy cow, that's like got triple insulation.
Those
and
are like
or something.
noise canceling.
This was actually an old headset that's actually broke right here. That's why it looks a little funny.
Can you?
It does because it's on your head. That's why it looks a little funny.
You steer the plane. You know.
Maybe.
So what's the scoot now? You got to set your mic up because right now it's coming off your laptop. Oh, maybe not.
Tap your mic.
Hold on, let me tap it.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
We're good.
You sounded really echoey. So you just got to. Can you get it closer to your?
Yeah, I'm trying to
tighten
move
it.
Where's that? Oh,
It's those new vaulted ceilings.
So Jim, aren't you having fun? Isn't this a good time? This is so much fun.
I'm enjoying this. Yeah.
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
Good, Mark.
I like that setup.
Is everybody hearing me okay? There's no echoes or anything like
No,
that?
we got you. Are you hearing an echo from us?
No, nope.
Okay.
No echoes.
We don't want that. That's a bad thing.
I've done shows in the past on my site that have had some echo. We call them the echo shows. They're disasters.
Yeah, we try to avoid that.
Yeah, we think so too.
every now and then.
Hey, I'm gonna MJ a couple sound bits here.
Yay, applause.
Is that good? Not too loud.
Yeah, that's good. It's loud but good.
All right.
Like take out wrenched ankle.
It's effect. Yeah, right.
Good little. All right.
That's the studio audience practicing.
They're
Yep,
just
I'm warming them up. You always got to have that, right? You've been to one of those. They got to warm up the studio audience. Okay,
Phil,
are we? Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. I only have the one listener question that you sent, and it was about the Titan U minute. Do you want me to use that or no? Do you want to use it as a way to introduce what might be coming up, or are you not ready to talk about that yet?
No, not ready to talk about that yet.
Okay.
We've just started talking. I think it's going to happen, but
okay. I can just
what? How about I just flip it to you and because I think we keep forgetting to talk about. Hey, if you want to send us a question,
yeah,
I know
I
it's
can
in
do
the end. Your
And I can-
outro, yeah.
I can use his first line too and stuff. So
Okay,
all right.
that works.
I'll do that.
All right, so let's see. What do we got to do? Everybody's mic's good. Everybody, Maz, can you adjust your laptop screen to move your head up a little higher by chance? Slightly higher. There. Ooh. There you go. Okay.
That's
That's better.
That looks better. Mute your phones if they're not muted. That includes me. If you need to mute your mic for any reason, Jim, if you move your mouse around, at the top of the screen, there's an option to mute your mic and mute your camera. If for
Okay.
any reason
Right.
you'll be talking most of the time, at least during the interview section. But after that, if you stick around and you're not saying anything, you could always mute yourself if you want.
How do I share the screen if I want to?
If go move your mouse over to the left-hand side of your screen, and
Oh, I
there's
see.
a
Share
green,
screen. Okay, got it.
green
Got it.
screen share. Yep. Okay. All right. We'll start off. We'll do the normal introduction. I'm going to make a brief comment about our 5 weeks of Christmas giveaway, and then we'll do happy hour. Jim, are you joining us for happy hour?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Then I'll ask you what you're drinking as well, and then Maz, are you good for the intro?
Perhaps. Give me a second.
Yeah, just pull up the agenda.
Man, that is a cheap. You need to get a better headset for your kid's Xbox experience. It just doesn't do it, man.
Are you slamming me in front of my kids?
Yeah, so we're up here live. We're above Cincinnati right now, and I see down below us, looks like a traffic jam there on 275 westbound.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, do you have
I
it?
can see it from here.
Do you have the intro?
Yeah, it's
It's in the agenda that I sent Monday, not in the script that I sent you today.
right. It's on Monday.
The agenda
on
that
Monday.
should say introduction, Maz,
Not
and
agenda.
team.
Yes, agenda.
Yes, agenda.
Okay, give me a second.
And it should say introduction, Maz,
Pretty sure it's coming up here.
and team.
This is the one.
Anyway, so we'll do what everyone's drinking. Then Maz will do the introduction, Jim, of you.
Got it.
We'll do our interview about halfway through. I'm going to cut us off, take a break, because we're taking breaks now, kind of in the middle of the interview. So we'll take a quick break, but then we'll come back, finish the interview, and then we're going to do lightning round. We're going to play a little Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and then we'll take our second break at that point. Okay. How's everybody? Ready to go? Maz, you got your intro good?
I think so.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do this. All right, here we go. In 3, 2. Hey, everybody, welcome to the most entertaining weather podcast on your listening and viewing device. Yes, you're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast. If you happen to be the first-time listener and you're checking us out for the very first time, thanks for stopping by. We want to let you know, go to stormfrontfreaks.com and you can check out our library of all the previous episodes we've got with famous folks from the weather industry, people like Storm Chaser, Jeff Piotrowski, the Weather Channel's John Erdman, just to name a few. But the other thing I want to mention to you guys right now, make sure you're following us on Twitter or Facebook for our 5 weeks of Christmas giveaways. So our last episode, we covered our holiday weather shopping extravaganza. We covered all kinds of great weather-related gifts that you could either put on your own list or you might want to give to your friends or family. But we're also, over the next 5 weeks, giving away those gifts to our listeners. So how are you? They're very cool. We've already given away a Kestrel 5500 weather meter. Right now, I know we've got the Weatherman collapsible and golf umbrellas that we're giving away. So there's more to come here over the next few weeks. So either go to Twitter, follow us at Stormfront Freak, or go to Facebook and you can follow us there. Just search Stormfront Freaks, and you'll find out all the different giveaways we're going to have going on. All right, but this is episode 67. We're with the prognosticator and the creator of HurricaneCity.com. Jim Williams is with us tonight, so looking forward to chatting with Jim. We'll also be playing our lightning round with him. We've also got WX resources to share, and you're not going to believe our weather's Believe It or Not stories as well. But before we get to all of that, let's go ahead and introduce you to our co-hosts. And it's always happy hour when we're recording. Tonight's no different. So, MJ, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, good evening, everybody. Tonight we have a Killian's Irish Red, a wonderful brew.
It's a nice fall, wintry kind of beer. That's good.
It works.
Maz, now you're in a new location.
Yeah, I just
new
moved,
home.
So my setup is not set up, so to speak.
So did you have your deliver your box of hooch to the right room or location?
I managed to find the Margaritaville Gold Platinum, whatever label it is. It's almost gone already. So I'm just telling you
Man.
Yeah, I'll move again in 20 years. Let's just say that. Wow.
Oh
I'd
my
forgotten how
God.
much fun that is.
Uh-huh.
Gotta love it. All right, Brady, you just moved too, or what? What are you drinking, and what happened?
Yeah, finally in my own apartment after my bed was backordered for about 2 weeks. I am drinking a Fat Tire tonight because you know what?
Very
It's one of
nice.
those kinds of nights.
You gonna open that cap?
Yeah, I just couldn't find a bottle opener.
Okay.
So I've been trying
Wait,
to stop
wait.
the past 10 minutes.
You have an apartment with vaulted ceilings?
I know, it's crazy. I didn't even know, honestly, I didn't even notice they were vaulted until
It's
now.
like a 3,000 square foot apartment there, Brady.
It's not 3,000.
All right. Hey, and then our guest tonight's joining us as well from the green room. He went to our stocked bar and is joining us. So, Jim, welcome. And what are you drinking tonight?
Good evening, guys. I'm drinking Miller Lite, keeping it simple tonight.
Nothing wrong with
less-
that.
Great taste, less filling.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right. Well, let's give you a formal introduction for those of you that don't know Jim, Maz. Let people know.
All right. By the way, Jim, I like that. Miller Lite, keeping it simple tonight. That should be their new phrase, right? Anyway, so this is Jim Williams. He created Hurricane City in 1997. I think that was when Brady was born. But one reason for the name Hurricane City are the predictions made at the beginning of each hurricane season for the top cities and islands that Jim thinks are at the highest risk based on simple mathematical formulas. All right. So since Jim started making city predictions in 2003, he's nailed at least 4 to 6 cities out of 20 each year that ended up getting hit. Now, Jim also runs a paving business in South Florida since 1987, tracks hurricanes with statistical input as a hobby since the late 70s, and holds no meteorology degree. That's pretty good statistics there, Jim. So what do you think of this season so far, and how'd you do this year?
This has been my best year of predictions. Since I've been doing this since 2003, and the only other year I can think that was even close to this year as far as accuracy was 2005. But people will say, well, that's because you had a whole bunch of storms. It's kind of like shooting a gun, in all different directions, and you're going to get hit. You're going to hit something, right? But this year was a little different in the sense that it was only a little bit above average. We have 11.7 for an average amount of named storms. This year, I got all of my top 5, which hardly ever happens. Got 20% of the remaining 15, but overall, a very successful year. My number 1 for the U.S. was Wilmington. The Eye of Florence went right over Wilmington. And my number 1 was Sable Island, Nova Scotia, which had Hurricane Chris winding down to a tropical storm when it passed over the island. So very successful year. I'm very happy.
So what's your criteria? I mean, how do you decide if it's a hit, a miss, or how close?
Yep.
Okay, well, the criteria is tropical storm force winds affecting the area. When the National Hurricane Center does their post-analysis, well, even actually before they do their post-analysis, they have a map that they show. Orange is tropical storm force winds, red are hurricane force winds. What I do is I use the HurTrack program, which allows me to use the range rings of the wind fields of each storm. The yellow being the tropical storm force winds, and the blue as well. And then when you get into the red, that's hurricane force winds. So after the season, I go back and tweak it. And I also use the reanalysis project from the HurDat 2, and tweak everything from the past to make sure that it lines up with what is considered a brush versus a hit. And that's the biggest debate. What is a brush versus a hit?
Hey, Jim, do me a favor. Explain the HurDat and the UDAT and the MDAT and the what's that DAT.
Yeah. Okay. That's a reanalysis project from the Hurricane Research Division, and they're constantly going back in history and taking segments, maybe a 10-year swaths, and going back and reanalyzing all the hurricanes during that time period, and looking at ground observations and maybe past recon data and trying to refine what the winds actually were at landfall. And very rarely is there a track shift. It's usually an intensity shift because we pretty much know what hurricanes made landfall, even going back to my database starts back at 1871. So I feel that since 1871, that it's improved greatly since 1871. But even back in the late 1800s, we had an idea of at least where they made landfall. Now, a lot of the fish storms we didn't know about, but we knew where they made landfall, and we could probably go back and look at the old data and find out what the winds were in certain cities, and the data that they've been able to accumulate at the Hurricane Research Division.
1800s. You don't look that old, Jim.
Yeah, I know. I'm older than I'm much younger than I look. Yeah.
You know what? That's a great point, Matt. Jim, talk to us some about your backstory. It says here you've been in South Florida for a while now, and you've been doing, you've been interested at least in hurricanes since the 1970s. Talk to us about, what got you all started. Was it a hurricane that came through? What was it?
For me, it was, I don't know if any of you know the late Bob Weaver, the weatherman from South Florida. He did a show at 5:55 right before the 6 o'clock news, and he would focus on the tropics, and he would show the color radar when that was brand new. And I was just fixated on that show. And so I would watch him talk about tropical waves and these waves coming off Africa and developing into hurricanes. And so I started looking into it further and started doing a lot of my own research. And so I started making these maps. When I was in middle school, I had a map that filled up my whole wall, hurricane tracking map, the size of a whole wall.
Oh my God.
And
wow.
I drew it myself, put the grids on the map, and tracked every storm. I used to do audio recordings. I would have a tape recorder and I would record everything. I still have some of those tapes. They're hysterical. Wow. I'm a kid in middle school, and I'm like, I'm pissed off because that storm didn't develop, or it turned out to sea. That's how obsessed I was. And I'm keep looking over here because I have a map. I don't know if I can show you this. I'm going to try to show you this map right there.
Explain it, since this is a podcast and a lot of people won't see it. Explain what you're showing us.
I'm showing a map on the wall. It's actually a door skin. It's the size of a door. And those tracks in red are all Category 5 hurricanes that have made landfall that have been verified. And I used to have this map all filled with all the storms, but it got to be so clustered that you couldn't tell one storm from the next. So I just decided, let me just focus on Category 5s just to keep it, so I don't have to keep updating it, because it's behind glass. So I have to take the glass off after the hurricane season. And if there's been a Category 5 landfall, I have to.
How far back are you going with that map?
That map is from I have that since 1900. That's all Category 5 since 1900.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay,
so I want to jump back, Jim, so you were talking about how you're determining the success of your assumptions and your predictions, and you talk about brushes, and a brush you're kind of checking off as, okay, I got that one right. So you were going to talk a little bit about that. Explain what's a brush, how close, or what's the definition?
Okay, take a storm like Katrina, for example. The hurricane force wind fields expanded out over 100 miles on that one. So I had to expand it a little further than normally. I mean, normally you're talking 60 to 80 miles for tropical storm force winds to impact an area. And then the core of the hurricane is usually 50, 60 miles of hurricane force winds. But in some of these storms, they're all different sizes. In fact, at Hurricane City, I have in the drop-down menu, there's a link that says how big was it, and it takes all the past storms and it shows you how big they were compared to the next to the state of Florida. So you have big ones like Hurricane Mitch and Hurricane Gilbert and Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Allen. And then you have the tiny ones like Hurricane Andrew and Hurricane Charlie. And so I factor all those, the winds, the size of those winds, using the HurTrack program, like I said, and it gives you the range rings. You can go back and run all the past storms, and it gives you the range rings. So if it's within the aqua and the yellow area, which are tropical storm force winds, these are all based on HRD, Hurricane Research Division findings. And I just am able to animate it with that program. And I can go city by city by city and figure out whether it was a brush or hit based on those range rings.
So what's the lowest wind speed that would still fall within that range and be considered a brush?
Well, 40 miles an hour. I mean, that's the minimum tropical storm force winds. And tropical depressions don't count. That's not in the calculations at all. It's just tropical storms and hurricanes. And we include subtropical and extratropical systems as well. And then, of course, extratropical, they expand. So that also factors in for the Canadian Maritimes, for example. You have an extratropical system expanding out 200 miles. If that's the case, then we're going to include that as a brush.
Okay. So what generally, what were your thoughts on this past year? Don't take into account your predictions, obviously, because you covered that a little bit. I'm just curious, what were your thoughts on this past year with the season, and what'd you think of it all?
It started out as I expected. It was a little bit slower. In fact, the first half of the season, a lot of people were like, well, this is turning out like we thought. This was going to be a slower than normal season. And then as the season progressed, in fact, this has happened the last few years. September, October comes around. It's like the lid comes off the tropics. And we're getting more late season storms, it seems, lately, October especially. I have my broadcast partner, Bill Phillips. We do live coverage of hurricanes when they make landfall. And we did cover Hurricane Florence, but I had a couple of funerals I had to attend. I had a lot of close friends that passed away this year. It's been tragic. And so I couldn't make it up there to cover Hurricane Florence. And my broadcast partner, Bill, said, well, I think that's it for the season. I think we're done. And I said, I don't agree with you. I think we're going to see a big one in October. Something's going to come, just like with Matthew. And even last hurricane season, when we had late September systems and going into October, I think we're going to get something big this year. And sure enough, Michael developed, and I got right back from a funeral I attended, turned right around and went right back up to Panama City, and I was in Hurricane Michael. I got in the eye of it.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, I was in that hurricane. Now this is an interesting story because a lot of storm chasers, they like to hunker down. They'll be under an overpass or an overhang of a hotel, for example, or they'll get away from the high wind areas. They'll get inland or get outside of it. I decided, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I have a fortified vehicle. I put Lexan glass on the back of it to protect me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go into this hurricane. I'm going to stream it live. I backed the truck into the wind in an open field where there was no trees, no power lines, no signs, nothing that could injure me. And the truck did a perfect job. I was able to stream it live through the entire hurricane before, during, and after got in the eye of it. We had about 80,000 viewers watching that on both Facebook and Periscope. But the Lexan glass did break on the backside eye wall. A piece of roofing material came up and shattered it. And if I had not had that glass on there, it might have came right through and hit me in the back of the head.
So, Jim, what was that like? I mean, it's one thing for us to see it, obviously, on Periscope, but it's another thing to actually be there. Like, were you ever scared, or was there a moment where you're like, crap, what did I do?
There was the front side wasn't that bad. I was just north of Tyndall Air Force Base on the backside eye wall, and it was a little hairy. I mean, there were some things. Occasionally, you get one of those mesovortices that was passing by the truck, and the winds would shift, and something would come from the side or come from an odd direction other than the regular mean wind direction. And then the eye came, and I got the eye. And I was so busy running around with my camera filming and everything, I forgot to check the pressure. But I did use Barometer Plus on the phone, which is really interesting. A lot of people say, well, that doesn't work. But there's a sensor in the iPhone in the new versions that allow you to measure barometric pressure. And it measured 924.8 millibars. And that was before the eye. So I'm assuming I was in about 923 millibars. Wow. But and I came home and tested that extensively, and it does work. It matches my weather instruments back here. So it's a really good app. But anyway, backside came, and that was when all hell broke loose. It was really bad. The backside, there was all the plywood that was protecting all the storefront windows just blew off. It was flying over the truck. There were aluminum flying by like missiles. You would not believe how fast things were flying by that truck. It was I say several times in the video, there's a short version. I have a 15-minute long video, which is all the oohs and ahs, so to speak. And then there's a longer version, which is a full documentary before, during, and after the hurricane. And the 15-minute version is just, you'll sit up in your chair and you won't believe it. Now, the one mistake I had was the truck was so well protected that you couldn't hear the wind that good. And a lot of people were like, well, there's a lot of things flying around, but we're not hearing a lot of wind. It was loud, but you couldn't hear it on the live feed. But it was really loud. Next year, I'm going to have an external microphone so that they can pick up the sound outside.
What do they want you to do? Step outside? Are you kidding me?
No, I never crack my window. I don't step outside.
On.
That's just foolish. You'll get killed. I mean, there was things flying by at 150 miles an hour to decapitate you. I mean, aluminum sheets that were 8 feet long, just like missiles right by the truck. Crazy.
All right. Well, hey, hold that thought. We're going to take a short break, Jim. I want everybody to go ahead and refill your drinks. When we come back, we'll continue talking chasing with Jim and also talk his predictions. All right. I just wanted to quick get that break in. That's all.
Yep.
Sometimes we get going and it's like, okay.
And then you can't stop.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Yep.
Not yet. Okay. So we'll come back. We'll just quick come back. We'll go right into the questions. You can keep going on we'll talk your chasing. And then probably 9:35-ish around there, we'll do the lightning round, and then we'll take another break. Okay. You guys ready? Anything?
Mm-hmm.
Brady, if you can get that mic any closer to you, because your vaulted ceilings really make you sound like you're in a cave.
Okay, let me. The pin is not in right now for my mic. That's why I can't bring it up. Let me go get that real quick.
That was good.
Hey, Jim, Sue Schroer, does that name sound familiar?
Yeah, she's follows me on Facebook.
Yep, she says hi. She's on
hello, Sue.
she's on the live chat.
She was, I believe, she was in Panama City.
Yes, that's
evacuated, and her place got pretty mangled.
that is what she's talked about a little bit on the chat. So
yeah, there were a lot of people needed help during that hurricane. It was crazy. They were coming up to the truck. Help! It was really something.
yeah.
So when we come back, Jim, what I'm just going to then quick jump right back to is talk about when you're streaming live from the hurricane. What are you talking? What are you looking at? What are you covering, or are you just showing the video? That's the important part. That's what I'll ask you about. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Sure.
What's Maz doing?
I don't know. He's hooking up a TV.
He's like, while we're on break, I'm going to get some more moving done here.
Right.
I'm about to lose power here, and I'm like, why is this not working?
Did you not pay the bill?
No, you don't find the right outlet. What the heck? All right, let's do this.
Things you find out about a new house.
That's right.
Yeah.
Find out the inspector didn't check all the outlets.
Try that. That's not good.
You're not getting power?
Oh, there it is. Woo, scared me. Yeah, there all of a sudden I wasn't getting power. I'm like, what the heck? All right. Okay, no time to get a beverage.
There it is.
That's right. That's right.
Set up that margarita.
I need a dumbwaiter. Send it on down.
Well, hey, new house. You can start thinking about that stuff, right?
My son's excited because they have a laundry chute. I'm like, that's cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He still won't put clothes in it. They'll still be all over the floor.
No, he's the first one to do it. He's loving it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we'll be talking all of a sudden like, what the heck was that?
Just wait.
Yeah.
Is that a brick?
All right, Brady, what's the scoop?
Whenever I talk, I'm just going to bring it up to my mouth, and then I'm going to mute my mic and bring it down.
You couldn't find your pin?
Nope. I'm just going to have to order a new one for Christmas.
All right,
Microphone robots.
less than $20, Amazon. All right, you ready? We'll come back.
Let's go.
Here we go in 3, 2. All right, hey, everybody, welcome back. Hey, so we're here with Jim Williams of HurricaneCity.com. Jim, you were talking a little bit about chasing and Michael down in Panama City. What I want to know is this. So if you talked about you've got the 15-minute version and you've got the over hour-long version. What else are you doing while you're streaming the video? Are you talking? Are you looking at anything, updating people on what you're looking at? How's that work out?
Yeah. So we when I say we, my partner, broadcast partner, Bill Phillips, he was taking my video and pushing it to the social networks because I didn't want to use my bandwidth from the road to try to pull this off. By the way, AT&T Networks was brilliant. They stayed up through the whole storm, allow us to stream. We lost 15 minutes of airtime.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, during the whole live video presentation, we're showing. First of all, I have a remote camera as well. I know Mark Sudduth from Hurricane Track does this too. We had a remote camera set up on the DuPont Bridge. Yeah, DuPont Bridge near Tyndall Air Force Base. And so when I went down, when my internet signal went down, Bill was able to show the remote camera. What all hell was breaking loose on that. Billboards coming down, aluminum flying by. It was like raining debris. And I would also show radar fixes of my current position using a radar scope. And we were showing, of course, the barometer app. And during the time that I was down, what Bill does is if he ever loses me in a storm, he shows either live web cameras that are on the internet or local news from the affected areas. So people that are watching it, a lot of people evacuate these areas, so they want to watch it as it's happening. And I feel that's part of the service that we're providing. But not only that, it's giving people an education, like I said, about the aluminum flying by. This is kind of what you can expect when you're in a hurricane. We've covered all these hurricanes in the past at Hurricane City, making landfall. So I figured what better way to do it than actually being there and showing people what's happening. And we were talking to people before the hurricane came, what are you going to do? Do you have a mattress to put over your head? That sort of stuff. And then afterwards, there were people coming up to me with all kinds of stories. The only thing I regret is I didn't interview more people in the aftermath. There were a lot of homeless people that had stories to tell. They were climbing up in trees and hiding in buildings from the storm surge. It was crazy.
That's hard to do. That's hard to do, though, right? Is to approach people that are in that situation and ask them their story. You're like, should I?
Yeah, it was like a zombie apocalypse. Like everybody's walking around, like it just didn't seem right. Like everything was out of place. Nobody was in their right mind. I felt out of place, and that truck is what I have is a utility truck, so it looks like it's official. So I'm in the area, and I have all the, like a typical like power truck is what it looks like. And so it's a big truck, and people think, well, I was in there to start helping people right away. And that really wasn't my purpose there. But I was, I would have helped any way I could, but there was power lines down, power poles down, blocking all the roads. I had to go around power poles to get to my remote camera. It was hair-raising. The most hair-raising part of this was that not actually the hurricane, but driving immediately after the hurricane, trying to navigate all the down power poles and lines. That place had so many power lines and power poles. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm from South Florida, where it's very congested down here. We have a lot of power lines and power poles, but I've never seen that many power lines and power poles crisscrossing roads.
It's more obvious when they're on the road.
They were down everywhere. People, yep.
Do you run into a lot of people who are like, yeah, I remember back in 1964, we made it through hurricane whatever, and they're like, it wasn't that bad, so we're just going to ride this one out too, and you give them the service of like, okay, this is where like Armageddon is, and they get the opportunity to see that, because I think for most people, they never get to experience, and when they see it, they're just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea.
Yeah, well, I had a sense of that when I was there before the hurricane. I got in there the day before, and the hotel I stayed at, which was a Comfort Inn in Callaway, Florida. That's actually the city that I was in. And I went into the hotel and checked in, and I asked all the questions a storm chaser would ask, like, how thick are your windows? Do you have a generator? Do you have a second floor room? I don't want to get flooded out here in case things get really bad. And she's like, oh, it's not going to be that bad. She wasn't comparing it to a past hurricane, but she didn't seem to be concerned at all about what was about to come. And I go, you have no idea what's coming here. I mean, this is like a tornado, basically, that's going to be over this area in a few hours. It's going to be that bad. Your windows are going to blow in. And then I said, well, give me a south-facing room, because I figured, give me a north-facing room. Wait a minute, that would be east in Panama. So yeah, give me an east-facing room, because the winds are going to be primarily out of the west and southwest. That was my thinking, right? But that wasn't the way it turned out. The winds came around out of the east and northeast and were hammering the room that I was staying in, and all those windows busted out. But they abandoned the hotel. The people that were running the hotel, they were nowhere to be found the next day. There was roof leaks everywhere. People wandering the hallways. It was just unbelievable.
So I want to ask you, Jim, a little bit. I want to go back to because here's what I love, and I think this is what our show is all about. We've got meteorologists and we have non-meteorologists, and our show is all about fun and entertaining and educating at the same time. But we love to embrace the weather geeks and the weather fans. And you may or may not be a meteorologist, but you just love weather. And you are not a meteorologist. So my question is, because I think that's embraced by us in our community. What is your background? And you talked a little bit about when you were growing up and the hurricanes you saw, but I want to know your background and how you got into now predicting, where you came up with this formula to be predicting hurricanes. Where'd that come from?
I'm glad you asked that question because I wasn't
You're
quite
welcome.
finished explaining my prediction scheme. So what I did, this is kind of a long story. I'm going to try to keep it short. Back in the probably late 80s, early 90s, I had an old Epson computer. I don't know if you remember those old mono computers with the 5-inch floppy disk. So I created a program where when you put it, you put in category 1, hit enter, and then it prints out all of the category 1s that made landfall on a dot matrix printer. So I wrote that program, and it prints out all these category 1, and it went state by state by state. So I'm figuring, okay, if there's a Cat 1 heading to Florida, I would put in Florida category 1, and it would print out everything and what it did when they hit Florida, all the category 1s. So as the years went by, my wife and I were talking about, I need to get this stuff online. I need to go on the internet. 1995 went by, 1996, 97. I said, okay, let me go ahead and get an account going to make a website. I started at GeoCities and I called it Jim's Hurricane Web back in 1997. So I figured, okay, let me figure city by city, because if you go state by state, there's too many. It's too large of data for it going state by state. And I wanted to go city by city because I figured if you narrow it down, it really gives the people an idea of where hurricanes hit more one place than another place, because everybody knows the most hurricanes hit Florida. So that's pretty much, and North Carolina, the Outer Banks. But if you go city by city, it's kind of different. So I decided, let me separate them all by about 50 miles and go all through the Caribbean and the United States and collect all the data on brushes and hits going all the way back to 1871. So it was a painstaking process. I would spend hours in libraries going over microfilm data, old hurricane books. I'd go to the Hurricane Center library at the Hurricane Center. I spent hours there, and I ran into former directors such as Bob Sheets, and I would do my research there and put all this together and decided, okay, once I get this put together, people can use this as a tool to figure out their city. Because if you say a state, it doesn't mean much to people. But if you say Miami and you live in Miami, then that has a whole new meaning. You can say, go to Miami. It'll tell you the most likely time of the year that Miami's going to be hit by a hurricane. It'll tell you the return rates for tropical storms and hurricanes. It'll tell you the return rates for major hurricanes. It'll tell you all the history of all the past hurricanes that hit directly. And not only that, it gives you all the NHC final reports. It'll give you maps, radars, everything for every hurricane that's ever hit that particular city. Then after calculating all that and getting it all put together, I figured, okay, let me come up with a ranking scheme. What cities get hit the most versus others? And I took all the 140 total cities. That includes all the United States coastal cities and the Atlantic Basin and the Caribbean islands. And I rank them. Who gets the most hurricanes? Who gets the most tropical storms? And that's a whole other page. It's called hurricanecity.com/rank. So you can see the rankings of all the cities. Then I decided, why not create a predictive scheme based on this? Because if I can calculate all this data, I can kind of figure out based on how active a hurricane season is going to be as to who might be most vulnerable. During busy hurricane seasons, there's certain areas that are very vulnerable, and slow hurricane seasons, there's certain areas that are very vulnerable. And then you combine that with the return rates, and you have a formula.
So here's my question: is that formula, is that proprietary, or is that something you've shared?
Oh, I've shared it. I put it on. I have a blog that I've written, and I write it before each hurricane season.
Okay.
It explains specifically what the process is. And the newest things that I've added to the 8 criteria that I use is the North Atlantic Oscillation and ENSO analog years. And since I've added the North Atlantic Oscillation, the predictions have been outstanding. And what I do is in mid-April, when I start calculating everything, because I release it on May 15th, in mid-April, I look at the NAO and I go, okay, in May, is the NAO positive or negative? And then I decide, okay, well, I don't decide, but I look at the data, and if it says it is a positive NAO at that time of the year, then I'll go back in history to the cities that I've chosen to be in my top 20 based on return rates and everything. And then I use the NAO to narrow it down, and I say, okay.
Which is what? What's the NAO?
The North Atlantic Oscillation, when it's
what
positive,
does that mean?
Well, when it's positive, there's cooler waters in the tropical Atlantic heading toward, and quicker trade winds heading towards the Caribbean and the mean development region in the Atlantic. When it's negative, it's more warmer and slower. Now, that's not for me to tell you the science behind the NAO. What I just do is take whether it's positive or negative and then apply that to the cities that I've chosen based on return rates. And then if there's a period, say they've been hit 8 times when there's a positive NAO, I would say, okay, that's a yellow shaded area there on my criteria. If they've been hit 8, like that happened last year with Irma, Marathon was picked because 8 times in history when there's a positive NAO, Marathon was hit by a hurricane. So I thought that was really outstanding. And that's why they made the top 5, and they were hit by Irma last year.
It's good that your formula is public because Phil wants it.
You're really quiet, Maz. Am I the only one hearing that by chance?
I can't hear him either.
Really quiet.
Yeah, you're really quiet. Anyway, we'll quick take a break. Let's quick figure Maz out here. Nope.
Nope, nothing.
Nope.
Maz, try like screaming into a mic.
You're just super quiet, Maz. You're super quiet.
He's back, I think. Stock.
Better? Is better?
Nope, it's getting there. It's better, but not there yet.
No. Super quiet. Yep.
That better? Definitely too.
Yeah, a little
No,
bit.
quiet and
Still
muffled.
quiet though. What'd you do different when you unplugged yourself and went to check your power and you came back?
Wait a minute.
Oh.
There you go.
Is there
Plug it
something
in.
better here? Better? All right, Brady, you use an Xbox. What the heck are the controls?
Oh, there's a volume control on your cord. Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Is that it?
That's
Yeah,
better.
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, move the
Tap
mic
your
up
mic.
now a
Tap
little
your
bit
mic.
toward you. Oh, it's not that mic.
It's not that mic?
No.
You sound like you did before, which sound like from your your laptop. Go to your settings on Hangouts
Yeah.
and check your microphone.
Default. Mic in the front, black Realtek. Hi. Microphone. How's that? Better? Better?
Yeah, put it
Tap
closer
it.
to your mouth now. Move it up a little bit.
How's that? Better? Better?
Tap it.
1, 2.
Still not that. I
Really?
don't think it was.
Is your mic input your headset or your? Yeah, there. Try that.
No, now I can kind of hear that.
Nope.
Nope.
Wow, what happened? Now, see, okay, now I can hear you, but you're super soft.
Now he's super quiet and he's
but
using his
you're
headset
not
now.
echoing like it's coming from your laptop. So I think you got your mic right, but man, you're super quiet. No.
No, that didn't matter.
Is there a microphone or a volume switch on your cord?
Yeah, Maz, there should be on your on your cord. There should be a something like that.
Now talk.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Nope, not yet.
Little better, but
It
still
just-
quiet.
It clicked for a minute. He might have to go to just using his computer.
Yeah. Good stuff. This is good radio right here.
This is good, yes.
So I can fill your dead spot here if I can.
Most of our
Well, I don't want to fill it with stuff that we might want to use on the show.
no
Oh,
kidding.
okay.
Edit-
I didn't know
we'll-
you were off air. Okay.
Well, we'll edit this out. We're
We'll
still
edit
on
this
air,
out,
but
yeah.
we'll edit it out.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
always
for the-
listening, Phil.
Yeah, I know. They're always there. That's why I said it's good radio. No, it's still quiet. God, what happened?
1 2. I set the microphone down. Maybe-
Little better. Yeah, it's a little better. No, he probably can't hear us.
No, he
No,
can't.
I can barely hear you. Is that better?
Yeah,
Better?
that's a little bit better.
I
Is it
think
better?
you're back to your laptop, I think. Tap your laptop. Yeah, you're back in your laptop, but we'll go with that. That's fine.
All right.
What were you going to ask? I just
Me?
want to know what were you going to ask when you came in?
I don't remember.
My microphone.
Do you remember?
What were we last talking about?
Okay, then I'll come back then because
I said I'm glad the formulas are public because Phil wants the formula. I can tell right now.
Oh, it was okay. It was a Maz one-liner. All right. Well, crap,
Yeah.
we missed that. All right. Well,
Oh,
let
okay.
me. We'll come back here and get into my question, and then we'll finish up from there.
I would say we're down to just a few minutes left for the
That's
segments.
fine. That's fine.
Whatever you need.
All right. Well, quick come back here. 3, 2. All right. So, Jim, my question is this. Now, you're not a meteorologist. I'm not a meteorologist. So, I as with a biology degree, I can't come to you with your formula and really say anything about it because I know nothing about it to begin with. That's something maybe Maz or Brady could chime in on. But my question is this: is you have to have caught some crap about this over the years, not being a meteorologist and predicting, and I'm using my air quotes, right? Predicting hurricanes and hurricane landfalls. You have to have had some people coming back. So I want to know, just out of curiosity's sake, what's been your argument to say I think I really can predict where hurricanes are going to hit?
All right. Well, let me give you an example. You all know Phil Klotzbach from Colorado State.
Sure. Yep.
And every year before the hurricane season starts, he's got a whole bunch of cameras in front of him, and he predicts how many named storms there's going to be. And he says, okay, East Coast, 2,000-mile stretch, there's a 51% chance that a hurricane is going to affect the coast. I mean, what is anybody supposed to do with that information? So that was one of the reasons I started doing this, because I figured I'm going to try it for a couple of years, and if it's successful, I'm going to keep going with it. And I've only had 2 bad years. So, I've even talked to Phil Klotzbach, try to, just say, look, this is simple, but it's better than just saying 51% for a 2,000-mile stretch of coastline. And I've been pretty accurate at this, and it's been very successful. So
what's pretty?
answer-
What's your? How do you grade yourself? So when you say I've been successful or I had 2 bad years, what does that really mean?
Okay, what I do, I verify each year. I have a verification at the bottom, percentage of accuracy. So if it's only 3 out of 5, that's 64%, whatever the percentage comes out to. And then the remaining 15, the amount of cities that are in the remaining 15 that get brushed or hit are counted, and then that percentage is added up. And then I combine the two, and it gives me an annual percentage accuracy of how many cities compared to the 140 total cities have been impacted. In fact, this year, I think I have this paper here. This year, to go with the argument that people say, well, not only are you not qualified, but anybody can do this because they're just using simply return rates. And there's a whole bunch of hurricanes. It's been very active lately. This year, only 31% of my cities were impacted. Last year, 71% were impacted. So out of the 31%, I got all of the top 5. Last year, I didn't even get all of the top 5, even though there were 71% of the cities impacted. So there is some skill involved in figuring out which cities are going to be impacted. But to answer your question about criticism, I think the biggest criticism I get right now is no criticism at all, and that is the professionals and the people in the meteorological industry don't like talking about this. And the reason they don't, it's not necessarily because I don't have a degree in meteorology. It's because they don't like to tell people you're off the hook. That area is at high risk, but that area is not at high risk. That's what I'm doing. I'm emboldened to no one. I don't have to answer to anybody. So I figure I can do this and try to hone it a little bit and get it right. And I have nothing to lose. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But every year I say to people, there's going to be one area or 2 areas hit that I don't pick. That's just the way it is. It could be a major, it could be a tropical storm. It doesn't differentiate the strength of the system. It just tells you your area is going to be impacted this year. And I've had people that have emailed me thanking me. If their city's in my top 5, they said, honey, we're going to the store because this guy's been so accurate over the years. And they thank me after the hurricane season when they basically, get their ass kicked by a category 4 or 5. They're thanking me. Like, he put the warning up and we listened to him. Nobody else was doing that in the media. They were just talking about the whole stretch of East Coast, 51%. And it's just no good. I mean, look at NOAA, 10 to 16 named storms. That's a forecast they give you. What is somebody supposed to do with that information? So if I can tell people that 15 named storms means this versus 10 named storms means this, then it starts to make sense to people. They can say, okay, a slower season means my area might be more vulnerable, and I'm overdue.
So what were the cities that your top 5 this year?
My top 5 was Sable Island, Nova Scotia, the tiny little island where only the horses live. I had that as my number 1 last year because I felt it was going to get hit, and finally it happened this year with Tropical Storm Chris, which was a hurricane. Number 2 was Wilmington, and the eye of Florence went right over Wilmington. Number 3 was Myrtle Beach. Okay. Florence once again went right near Myrtle Beach. Number 4 was Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and number 5 was the Isle of Youth, Cuba, which was impacted by Alberta early in the season.
I'm curious, and this is just anecdotal, just for myself. I'm curious to know, and I'm only half serious, but I am half serious when I say this. Have you done anything with time of day? And I know that sounds weird to say, like, oh, come on.
I have.
But I'm curious to know, is there a certain time of day? And I think there's a science behind that. It's just that it's, when the wave comes across, when there's certain things. Tell me a little bit about that. I'm kind of curious.
I have. I don't have those notes in front of me, but I have calculated all that and tried to find out what time of day these things make landfall. It's about 50-50. All the research I've done, no matter what city I reference, it seems like it's about 50-50 now. The problem with that calculation is that you're talking about the eye making landfall at a certain hour, but there's the whole core of the hurricane that has to pass. So that could be a whole 6-hour stretch. And if you're at midnight and it's a slow moving hurricane, it could still be hitting in the morning hours. So you can't really say, well, it hit at this hour versus that hour. But if you want to go just by the eye, it's about 50-50.
Okay.
That's what I've found out. Yep.
Okay, I want to ask this. So all of us, even though we're not all meteorologists, we have science degrees of some sort or math degrees. First off, I'll say this, Jim. I if nothing else, again, because I can't be a good judge of, is this system viable or not? Is your formula viable or not? I will say this, bare minimum, it brings awareness to people, right?
That's right.
If nothing else, it's saying, if someone's saying, hey, your city could be highly impacted this year, it's making people maybe look and think a little bit more than, like you said, of, hey, there might be 10 to 15 named hurricanes. Well, if I'm living in Charleston, North Carolina, what does that mean to me? But if someone's saying, hey, I might be at a higher risk this year of a hurricane, I might at least perk up and find out what's going on. But I'm curious. I'm going to ask MJ because he's a math major and math degree. And what do you think of a formula? Because to me, there are lots of constants in weather and in tides and in jet streams, and there are constants there. But there's also a ton of variables there to go. Is that, how predictable can we really be? And you got a big math background. What do you think?
Well, yeah, math in a different way, probably. But I think what we usually do, and of course I haven't looked at Jim's formula and studied it or anything like that. But I know what we try to do in math is eliminate as many variables as we can, right, and isolate. And I think so. If the formula, like I'm hearing, is looking at a lot of hard data in terms of when you talk about return rates and you talk about all of those things, I think that's the right direction to go. I think you can't get rid of all of the variables for sure. But what we try to do is isolate them and eliminate them as much as we possibly can to make a formula more effective. And I assume, Jim, those are some of the things that you've looked at as you've
Oh, absolutely.
as you've refined this formula.
Yeah, there's a process of elimination. Believe me, I go through it. I have my whole list of all 140 cities, and then I start number crunching. And the first thing I do is look at whether they're due or overdue. That's the number one thing. And then, but that doesn't always factor in, because they could have been hit last year, the same city, and then I'll pick them again the next year. It's not always just about return rates. It's about patterns too. There have been times where, like Marathon, a bunch of times when they've been hit by a major hurricane, they get hit by a tropical storm the following year. And that happened this year. I had Marathon in my top 20 because it's happened so many times. And sure enough, they were hit by Tropical Storm Gordon this year down in Marathon. But I did not have, and what's also important is who I don't pick. And I did not pick the Florida Peninsula this year, and I did not pick Texas this year. I did not have either of them at high risk, and neither of them were impacted this year, except for the Panhandle and the Keys in Florida.
Sure.
You could take a look at, let's say, Oklahoma City for tornadoes. There's a meteorological segment of that, but there's also a climatological segment of that. And so you can look at it one way and all of the ingredients that are there, and then you can look at the climatological side and say, but when are those ingredients there, and how often do those patterns emerge using your I first of all, I'm impressed with your research. I like the fact that you are a researcher, you're passionate about it, and you like it. So you're going to continue to do it, and there's an audience for that.
I love data. I love number crunching.
I think the key too with everything is communication, right? Because no one weather tool is perfect, right? So I think communication is key, and I think it's fantastic, and continue communicating it and make sure people know that it's, not necessarily absolute, because that's the reason, that's the main disconnect, I feel like, with a lot of these tools that we use, is communicating probability. And that to me is the most important thing.
That's right. Well, the National Hurricane Center started putting maps out now. I've been watching them for a long time, and only recently they started putting maps on their site showing return rates and, this is how often this area gets hit versus that area. And I never saw that over there before until the last few years, when they really started getting heavily intense into these maps showing return rates. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe they know what it is. But like you just said, Brady, you can't really say for sure. You can't leave anybody out, because, and I say this every year, somebody's going to get hit that I don't pick. I mean, that's my safety net to say, just because you're not in my top 20 doesn't mean that you're safe. You're still going to get hit. And all the agencies would have to do is say the same thing. They could say we have a higher risk for, say, the southern half of Florida. They don't have to go city by city if they don't want to. I know that's very risky, but they could at least narrow it down a little bit more and then say, you other people, there's just as good of a chance, but climatologically speaking, the data kind of lines with this area based on how many named storms we're expecting, based on the fact that they're overdue by a certain amount of years. And, and that's the biggest criticism I get, going to answer your question, Phil, is from the National Hurricane Center people. I've met them in person, and they don't like the fact that you're kind of leading into a, I just forgot what I was going to say. You're leading into a scenario where you can't say to people that they're safe, and so you know what? I've just lost my train of thought. I was going to drive at a point about the net. Oh, that's what it was. They don't like the return rates to say, well, you're overdue. They don't like return rates in the sense that somebody's overdue. They don't like that term overdue. They don't like to use that at all, and that
just find another name for it. I mean that right. Just find another name. Maybe they'll be happy with it. So last quick question. So what are your thoughts for next year, or when do you start coming up with your plan for 2019?
I don't calculate until like early April before the season starts, because I got to wait for the Enzo to pan out, because that's another factor. Are we going to get an El Nino? Are we going to be neutral? Are we going to be La Nina? That factors into this too. So I got to wait and see how that pans out.
Any trade over cities from previous years that you've kind of had high on your list and still haven't been hit yet that you think are in that potential overdue, or whatever name you want to use?
Yeah, well, that's why you can't just use due or overdue for predicting, because Tampa's been overdue for actually they were impacted by Irma last year, so I can't really say that. But Tampa had gone a lot of years, like something like 30, 40 years without a hurricane passing over there. So they got Irma, they got in the eye wall anyway, and so it counts as a hit. But there's a lot of cities that are way overdue. They're overdue, Mark. I mean, they're like 10, 15 years beyond.
So
there might be a city that might be interested that you don't have on your list there, and it might be Vegas. I know it's a little bit twisted to say that, but I could see them being interested in the probability of something.
I thought
and it's a little
about
bit
that.
twisted to say that, but I'm just like, you know what?
Maz, I thought for a second you were suggesting they were going to get hit by a hurricane, and I was going to say
that's what I thought first too. But
I did too. I get it. Yeah.
I knew where he was going with it. I think about that all the time. Vegas is going to have an interest in this. They can make money on it. And if they were using my predictions, they'd be making a lot of money. Because I've only been two years that I've really flopped on this, but overall it's been very good.
So, Jim, how can people that are going to want to know what's up for 2019, how can they follow you either on social media and or find out the information when you release it?
Twitter at Hurricane City, Facebook.com/Hurricane City Tracking. And those links are all on the front page of hurricanecity.com and the navigation menu and the logo at the top of the site. On YouTube, it's hurricanecity.com spelled out. hurricanecitydot.com. And I'm also on Ustream, which kind of is defunct at the moment. They're not allowing people to live stream anymore, so I don't use Ustream. So it's basically Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Great. All right, well, hey, that's the sign. It is time for our lightning round. This is our game show of fun, brilliant, and flashy questions for our guests that we play every episode, and tonight is no different. So, Jim, I understand, obviously, you're living down in Florida. You're just north of Fort Lauderdale, right?
Yes, that's right.
Kind of near Miami. And are you a big Miami sports fan? Follow any Miami sports, anything?
I follow the Dolphins. I follow the Heat.
You're close. Okay, so it might be a little bit of a stretch, but tonight we're going to play a little Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and we're going to do this Miami Vice style. So Miami Vice. Exactly. So Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? So again, you've got your lifelines. You can do 50-50. I'll take away half the answers. You've got phone a friend. You can pick any one of the freaks, Brady, Maz, or MJ, any one of them to help you, or poll the freaks, and we'll ask all of them, and maybe that will help you out as well. So you got 3 lifelines, and this is all on Miami Vice. You ready?
Okay, go.
Of course you're ready. Okay, so first and foremost, first question, what singer or singers did not appear in an episode of Miami Vice? Was it A, the Fat Boys, B, Glenn Frey, C, Phil Collins, or D, Michael Jackson? Who did not appear in an episode of Miami Vice? Fat Boys, Glenn Frey, Phil Collins, or Michael Jackson?
I will say Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. D, is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
And that would be correct. Michael Jackson was not in Miami Vice. Very good. So moving on to the second one. What year did Miami Vice, the series, premiere on TV? Was it 1981, 1982, 1983, or 1984? 81, 82, 83, or 84?
I believe it was 1984. That's my
Right.
final answer.
That would be correct. You're 2 for 2. 2
Nice.
for 2. All right. Number 3. So there's 6, by the way. So number 3, how many straight weeks was the Miami Vice soundtrack number 1 on the Billboard charts? Was it A, 1 week, B, 5 weeks, C, 11 weeks, or D, 15 weeks? How many weeks was it number 1 on Billboard?
Oh,
This is
boy.
the soundtrack. Miami Vice soundtrack.
Phil, what does that go like? Can you rehash it?
Well, I do know it had the theme song, the Miami Vice theme song, but I do know it had Glenn Fry, "We Belong in the City." It had Phil Collins, "In the Air Tonight." Had Tina Turner. I don't know who else.
Well,
Is that
you
good?
pretty
Does that
much,
help you out?
Yeah, that helped me out.
Okay, so 1,
I'll
5,
say
11, or
the-
15.
I'll say the 15 weeks. That's my final answer.
Final answer? That would be incorrect. The correct answer is 11. It was 11
I was
weeks.
going to say 11 too.
It holds the record. It holds the record for a TV show soundtrack. How many consecutive weeks? Yep. All right. Question number 4. Sonny Crockett, one of the main characters
Wait a
in the
minute.
show.
Am I supposed to be kicked off the show at this point?
No, we'll keep going. We give you a break on this one. So Sonny Crockett is one of the original characters. What is the name of his pet alligator? Is it Elvis, Buddy, Tubbs, or Shoes? What is the name of his pet alligator on his sailboat? Elvis, Buddy, Tubbs, or Shoes? And you have 3 lifelines.
That would be Elvis. Final answer.
A, Elvis, final answer. That would be correct. It was Elvis.
Jim does not
You
play
don't
well
need
with
no
others.
lifelines.
Yeah, he says screw the lifelines.
Need 'em.
I don't need no stinking lifelines. All right.
Good thing. I don't even know what Miami Vice is, so don't even ask.
Well,
me.
you're learning. Hey, this is a learning lesson for anybody that's probably under the age of 35. I'll
Fun
just
show.
throw that out there. Okay. All right. 2 more. In which city did Ricardo Tubbs? So Ricardo Tubbs is the other character. So Sonny Crockett, Ricardo Tubbs. But Ricardo Tubbs previously served in law enforcement in another city. Was that A, Fort Lauderdale, B, New York, C, Los Angeles, or D, Havana? What previous city was Ricardo Tubbs in law enforcement before joining the fine men and women of Miami-Dade County?
Wow.
Fort Lauderdale, New York, Los Angeles, or Havana. And you remember, you got 3 lifelines. We can do 50-50,
50-50.
pull a freak, or pull all the freaks.
Or hit a freak with a pole.
You know what? Let's go the 50-50, please.
All right,
Final
50-50. I'm going to take off A and D. So it's either New York or Los Angeles.
Wow. Okay, well, that helps me. I am going to say New York. Final answer.
New York, final answer, and that would be
There you
correct. Very good. Moving on to the last question. Sonny Crockett, in his previous life, played college football. Where did Sonny Crockett play college football? And this is the character, not the actor. So he either played at Miami, he either played at Florida, Florida State, or Central Florida. And the answer is a school in Florida. I'll give you that hint.
Yeah.
Nice.
Miami, Florida, Florida State, or Central Florida. And another little hint, he was a wide receiver. His character was a previous wide receiver, and that's where he got his alligator Elvis was. Oh, I really gave you a hint there.
Well, that would be the Florida University of Florida final answer.
That is correct. Wow. I kind of
Use
slipped.
a lifeline. Thanks for that.
I slipped that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I screwed that. Pooch.
Okay, Phil.
All right. Well done, Jim. Very good job. Obviously, you know your Miami Vice. That's pretty good. We're going to go ahead and take our final break. Stay right here as we've got some WX resources to share with you. We've also got some amazing stories in our Weather's Believe It or Not segment. We will be right back. All right, very good. Jim,
Yeah.
Did really well.
do me a favor. Give us a little sound bite. If you can say, this is Jim Williams of HurricaneCity.com. You're listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast.
All right, let me know when.
Anytime.
This is Jim Williams from HurricaneCity.com, and you are listening to the Stormfront Freaks podcast.
Oh, one take, Jim. Way to go.
Yep. Good
Man.
job.
Very good. All right.
No
So-
blooper reel there.
No, we're not getting as many this year.
No, true.
I guess you start getting to be known and
Big
people-
time. Big time.
People don't screw up your name anymore, Jim. We had people mess that up all the time.
Oh,
Oh, I
man.
can believe it. I can
Matt,
believe
it took Maz about 20 episodes before he could
Yeah.
say it without screwing it up.
Then I finally realized, I'm like, wait, you're calling me a freak? Is that the dude? What the-
Okay, so here we go. Coming back out of break, Maz. I'll start you off with you with WX Resource.
Okay.
Who's got a WX Resource, a weather resource to share?
Well, I kind of already revealed that. I'm sorry. Am I supposed to go?
No, go ahead.
No. Just we're finding out who's got them, and then when we come out of break, we'll say, okay, and so's got one, and so's got one. So you've got one. Yes.
Well,
Jim?
I kind of already mentioned it. It's the Barometer app, the Barometer Plus
cool.
app.
Oh, that's
for the
okay. You
phone.
can talk
Yep.
about that.
You can talk about that again.
I've got a shout out, even though we've already done one before.
Okay.
I got nothing. I'm sorry. I got busy and couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to show it because we've done it before, but I really am loving it a lot. So,
Okay.
and it's the Weather Underground. You know, just the maps on that. Like,
Okay.
like you can zoom in, zoom out, move over. Fronts are on there, temps are on there, precip's on there. I do it all the time because I've got a son out in Nebraska, and I'm like, zoop, zoop, zoop. Oh, there it is. Yep, it's coming your way. 15 minutes, going to be sleet, freezing rain.
Cool.
You know, it's awesome. So
Awesome.
I'll give a shout out, you know, and it'll be like, hey, Dina, it's for you. But,
Okay. All right, that's all we got because I didn't happen to have one of those. So,
all right.
Maz, you've got you and Jim, and
All right.
then don't forget it's episode 67. Show
67.
notes at stormfrontfreaks.com or your podcast app, either one. And then Brady, are you good to introduce the weathers? Believe it or not.
Yeah, and I actually have one as well.
What is the Chris Ramirez K-San? What is
Yeah.
that?
That's old. That was from
Okay.
Oh, okay. Just didn't
that's actually a weather fool. I just forgot to take it off, and I realized I didn't come up with a WX resource, so I thought you guys would hopefully
Oh yeah.
cover
absolutely.
for me.
That's all right.
We got you, man. Of course.
Good. All right.
Can
So
I
then,
change mine? Can I change mine by any
you
chance?
can do whatever you want. Yeah, you can do
Okay.
whatever you want.
Right
All right.
up to the
Or
moment.
you could
we
do
ask
two.
you.
Do you want to do two? We only have we only have two. We can add
We
three.
got time for 4, Jim. Go ahead.
Why not 6 or 8?
Yeah.
Yes.
So remind me, the Ripley's, believe it or not, we're just telling a true story about the weather. Some crazy, weird story.
Yeah, some crazy true weather
I got
story
one of
that
those.
hard to believe.
I gotta believe it or not.
You do,
I do.
Maz? You got two, you got a WX resource and a believe it or not.
Well, it's 1.5. Because really,
That's true because you are reusing one.
So
Right.
Reuse, recycle.
me, Maz, who else for the?
I've got two. Whether believe it or
Oh
not.
my god! You overachiever.
I know.
Give one to MJ.
He picked mine. Phil picked mine, so not.
Let
Did I
MJ
really? Well, then
No,
use
go-
it.
no,
Which one
no,
are you going to
didn't.
use?
No, you
No,
didn't.
let
I'm kidding.
MJ.
No.
You're
Do you want to take
You're
one of
doing
those?
it, MJ.
You got the
Yes,
script.
MJ, you got it.
You've got the script. Take
MJ,
one.
I'm
Which one do you
calling
want?
on you.
7 tornadoes or the debris 200 miles away?
What am I supposed to do? Just read it?
Yeah, read it.
Okay,
talk
I'll
about
take
it, whatever.
the second one. It gives me more time to look at it.
So
Okay.
do we know that they're all true beforehand?
The
I
ones
do know
that
the
the
7
ones that I have are.
Well,
Here's-
you're not supposed
here's
to
the-
tell me that.
Well, yeah, no, there it's all this stuff. Ripley's Believe It or Not, all that stuff is true, or it might have over the years been stretched. It's like, this fish that I caught that was this big and now it's this big and now it's this big.
Okay.
But it's still true to an extent.
Okay.
It's not supposed to be I believe you or I don't believe you. That's
Got it.
It's like Guinness Book of World Records. Like, holy shit, that really happened. It's like, yeah, it really did. We're
Is
not
the
kidding.
date right on the Grand Island one?
On the, yeah,
Really? Okay, because I remember that one, and I think Chad Myers was actually forecasting that.
Really?
And Dr. Fujita came.
Okay.
'Cause
Well,
it was the
all
first
right.
time.
Well, you can tell us about it when I cover
I
it.
still remember what year it was. So I'm like, huh.
Okay. Good for you.
Okay.
Tell us when we're actually on air.
Wow, whatever.
Wow, listen to that. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, but seriously, that's good feedback. But yeah, let's get it when we're ready to go. All right, so we're good. So it's gonna be Maz, then it's gonna be Brady, and Brady, I'm doing one, and MJ's doing one. We're splitting up ours. Got it?
Got it. Yeah,
Okay.
Matt's got one. I'm gonna do mine. I don't know if mine's necessarily. I don't know if I understood the point, but I'm just gonna do it anyway.
Well, if it's crap, don't do it.
It's not crap. It's not crap.
I just figured I'd mention that before we actually spend the time doing it. If it's not real or if it's not along the lines of what we're
It's
talking about.
real.
here.
It's not like last time where I just
There's
made.
cats in it. Don't do it.
I will.
All right, Jim, did you happen to have a Weathers Believe It or Not story or not? It doesn't matter.
No, I don't. No.
Okay, we're
It's
covered
okay. Yeah,
anyway.
that's easy.
And then
probably
so
got too many
Brady,
covered.
it's episode 67. Truly, I don't know if we'll put these in the show notes, so scratch that. There's really,
You're not gonna
I mean,
type it up. You're not gonna type up
Crazy.
each story. Come on,
No.
Phil.
and then we'll go to MJ questions, and I'll close it up.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
looking for my
right.
question. I can't find it, but I'll find it.
Just
So
make one
Maz,
up. Just make-
I'll count you
I
in,
got
okay?
All right, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
All right.
Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah, you're echoey like it's coming out of your computer.
Am I
It sounds
better?
like shit,
It's
but that's
better?
okay.
Worse. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello? Is this
I
better?
think it sounds great, man.
yeah, we'll deal with it. You
Oh.
and Brady both have the hey, I just moved and I'm in a room that's got nothing on the walls sound.
I'm
to
using
it,
that
so.
for 9 weeks though, just to let you know.
There's stuff on the walls.
Here we go.
Moved
Maz coming in 3, 2.
Okay. Enough of the applause. Let's move on. It's time now for WX Resources. Very cool locations on the internet. You can check out stuff that's weather related. And Jim, I understand you've got what, 7 to share tonight?
I've got 2. I've got. I already mentioned one of them, Barometer Plus on the phone. It's an app you download, and it'll give you your barometric pressure, and it'll calibrate based on your elevation. So, and it's only available on the newest forms of the iPhone and the iPad. So that is found to be fairly accurate. My other resource is tropicalatlantic.com. Chris Hollis runs a great website over there. He does all the Hurricane Hunter vortex messages and decodes it and produces the maps for people to watch the animated hurricane hunters as they're moving around. And he's also runs the best performing models and whatnot to tell the best track data on all the hurricanes and what models are performing the best. So tropicalatlantic.com, check that out.
Are you on that one every day?
I go there a lot. I use a lot of his data. Yes, I do.
Okay. And you get a kickback? I'm just kidding. I'm just messing. Hey, I got one too. Well, it's a half. It's a half one. And that is because we've used it before. And this is partly because the ladies aren't on. So Dina, this one's for you. It's the Weather Underground. I got to tell you, that app, when I first started, I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Then I was looking around and I've been using it almost every day, but not just where I am. It's so easy on the app to just, zoom out, move over to a different part of the country, zoom back in instantly. The temperatures, the fronts are all on there like that. And, I love that aspect of it. I've been using it a lot, especially they had a blizzard this last week in northern Kansas and southern Nebraska. They had like 4-foot snowdrifts and stuff. And so it was really cool just to kind of zoom in on and watching that whole system. So I know we did that one before, but it's just another shout out to Weather Underground and Dina. That bud's for you. Okay. So anyway, hey, you can check out all of these resources on episode 67, Stormfront Freaks podcast. And it is right on the podcast app as well. Okay. So Brady, you've got the weather, believe it or not, right?
I do. It is the weather, believe it or not. And you know what, Phil? I just noticed. Why does Maz always get an applause for his segment, but we never get an applause for mine, even though the viewers clearly love my segment the best.
The viewers might, but our in-studio audience apparently doesn't care for it.
Apparently not.
Oh, and they thought that was funny
come
too.
on.
So that's good.
Take the soundboard away from this man. Anyway, it's time for our version of Ripley's Believe It or Not, Weather's Believe It or Not. We're us as the Stormfront Freaks. We're going out on the internet. We're going out back in the databases, and we are looking for the craziest or weirdest weather event that we can find. Phil, I heard you are claiming something. What are you claiming tonight about?
So
past weather
I'm stealing this from a friend of the show, previous guest John Erdman from the Weather Channel Digital. He writes all kinds of great articles and things like that. But he had one of his pieces covered a lot of the strange weather events that he's seen in his lifetime. So I'm stealing this from him a little bit. I know MJ's got one that comes from that same article, but this is a story where, listen to this, and Jim, you can chime in on this as well, because you talk about, what was that word we were using again? Not reoccurring, but what was the word?
Return rate.
Return rate. So listen to this return rate. 7 tornadoes that hit a town in one night. Okay, you talk about return rate. Okay, this is one hell of a return rate. So there were 7 tornadoes. So this was all created from this massive, slow-moving supercell. And that's kind of what you need, right, is something that's not moving very fast and just keeps putting tornadoes down. But this happened in a 3-hour time period on June 3rd back in 1980. And Maz, you might be familiar, Mr. Nebraska. You might know Grand Island, Nebraska, town of 48,000 people.
Yep. Right in the center. As a matter of fact, I think, don't quote me on this, I think Dr. Fujita flew out and checked that out, because I think that was when they first realized you could have a tornado spin the other direction. He had it actually documented. So
wow.
Yeah.
So this is a strange event in a number of factors, but because the supercell was moving so slow, what happened was, and the most destructive of these 7 tornadoes was an F4, rated F4 at the time, right? Tornado. It moved east of town to westward and south side of Grand Island before basically turning completely south. But what happened, they took all these strange paths and everything else, but listen to this, 7 tornadoes, 1 town, 1 night in 3 hours, 5 were killed, and another 193 were injured. Estimated damage around 300 million back in 1980 from a town that saw 7 tornadoes. So
that's a lot. I mean,
so
can you imagine that? I mean, you just get hit by one, you're like, oh my God, it's over. Then you look and you just see another one coming, like, and then you get 6 more. Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah.
What are you going to do?
And think about how they say, lightning never strikes twice, and which is totally false, right? Well, tornadoes 7 times around one city.
You know what?
Moving out of that town.
You know what? Someone should make a movie of that night.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
It's called A Scene from the Day After Tomorrow. That's what they've already did.
I thought there was a movie called The Night of the Twisters where they did something like that.
They might have.
Based on that one?
There is a movie like that where there's one town that gets hit over and over in a very short period of time.
That's insane. All right,
that was my nightmare. You know,
Maz, you know what? So that was your nightmare, but what is your weather's Believe It or Not?
Okay, so how much rain do you think you can get in an hour?
In an hour?
2 inches, 3 inches. What it's heavy rain.
We talking Harvey, or are we talking like a cold front?
We're talking
an hour. 3.
I'm not going to say.
3 in an hour.
I'm going to let Jim check the data on this. Of the year it was 1956. So it's possible it could have been tropical related.
Yeah.
All right. So I want you. An inch of rain seems like a lot until you get it in 1 minute.
What?
Yeah.
No,
it's a record 1.2. I'm going to share this with you here if I can, because we all know how well that went the last time I did this.
Oh, you do so well with that stuff.
It was like 20 minutes of like, what's the button? Let's see. Where is the button, actually, now that I think of it? There it is. Okay. So I'm going to share the screen with you. And hit share. Yes. Go to, not that one. Not right. This one. There you go. Can you see that?
Current rainfall records. I see it.
1 minute, 1.23 inches in Unionville, Maryland. So it's East Coast, 1956. Maybe it's tropical related. I don't have the date on that one, except for the year.
Couldn't have been Carol. That was 55. Flossie maybe 56.
1956
Could have been
in
Flossie.
Maryland.
Wow.
Minute.
I mean, that's like a buck. I mean, that's what, a bucket being dumped
Carol was
basically. And
54.
That's
I wonder
just
if anybody
nuts.
like drowned just walking to their car. Just like can't breathe because that's a lot of rain coming down
In a minute.
in a
in a
minute.
minute. Yeah, ground's not soaking that up in a minute. I can tell you that, no matter how dry the ground is or not.
That's crazy.
That is
Wow.
Could
crazy.
give you the date at least.
Yeah, I know.
Well, the funny thing is what blows me away even more is I see the 1 hour record is 13.8 inches.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw
1
that too.
hour.
Holy cow.
Central West Virginia, 1943. Holy buckets!
Well, you figure
Literally
it's gotta be
buckets.
mountainous. It's got to be mountainous, right?
Yeah, you would not want to be there or any of those places on that list.
Well, I think that like the Big Thompson flood, I think that was like 12 inches in an hour or something. It was like clear skies everywhere else, and that rain gauge was like, oh, that can't be right. It's got to be a broken rain gauge, and it was just filling up. And they're like, no, and it was real.
Well, that's pretty crazy, Maz. That's pretty
Yeah.
crazy. All right, MJ, you got one, right?
I do. Sorry, I had to just fix something there. Yes. And we're going to go back to tornadoes. And the headline is Tornado Debris 200 Miles Away. So we talk about, tornadoes picking up fish and doing other kinds of things. But this is talking about depositing debris from a tornado over 200 miles away. Dr. John Knox, professor at University of Georgia, did a study of an April 27th, 2011 tornado outbreak. And in the town of Phil Campbell, Alabama.
God, Phil Campbell's got his own town.
He has his own
I know
town.
Phil.
I know.
Yeah,
and I looked
Phil?
that up too, just to
Phil
make sure
Campbell?
that was real. Yeah. And it is Phil Campbell, Alabama. It was
Wow.
leveled by an EF5 tornado that day. There were buildings swept away, car wrapped around a debarked tree, a section of highway pavement was scoured away, and the tornado had a track of 132 miles.
Oh my god.
Gosh,
It
that's a
swept
long
up
track tornado,
it
too.
swept up a photo from Phil Campbell, Alabama. Don't know if it was a Phil Campbell or not, but it swept up a photo and deposited it in Lenoir City, Tennessee, which was 220 miles away.
Wow.
It picked up a what?
Wow.
A photograph.
Photograph. Okay.
Oh my
Yep.
god.
But then, okay, so that maybe okay, we can handle that.
Piece of paper, right?
A piece of paper. Yep.
You think? Okay.
A pair of Wrangler jeans from a plant in Hackleburg, Alabama, fell 40 miles away.
oh my gosh.
So now
Which
that's
brings me
something
back to our
of
dating years. Never mind.
So,
That was,
so
that was
the
without the body, right?
yeah, the lesson is
Yes.
don't get caught in a big, strong
In a
tornado
big
because you
tornado,
may end up
exactly.
50 miles away.
Well, no, I read that it was a Wrangler jeans plant
It was a factory.
that got hit. It was a factory,
Wow.
Wrangler jeans, and 40 miles. Pair of
that's a
jeans
far
flew 40 miles away.
I thought somebody got pantsed or
I
something.
wonder what size
Yeah.
they were. Yeah, I was going to say maybe I can get a pair of Wrangler jeans.
It was wrapped in a boulder-sized hailstone, right? I don't know.
Oh my god, that's insane. That is insane. All right, well those are pretty good. Now I have one. So guys, flights can be delayed, right, by cold air.
We know
Yeah.
that, Brady.
Every Thursday.
They can be delayed by ice. They can be delayed by what are the other things, right?
Is this an
Freezing,
excuse? Is that what they're
precipitation.
coming up with
heat.
for next week? An excuse?
Tornadoes,
Oh, tornadoes. That's rare.
hurricanes.
Yeah, they can't. And that was one thing that I learned was heat. So in
Mhm.
Phoenix, it was so hot, and this actually can happen in a decent amount of time. Is there were like 50 or some flights that were canceled because temperatures got over 120 degrees. Now you'd think, yeah, Phoenix, that can get that hot, but the reason was what I was most surprised about. It's because the air is too light, because the air doesn't have enough density for the planes to get off the ground.
Can't get the lift.
Yeah, can't get the lift, and some people might know that, but I was shocked by that. I was like trying to think, oh, maybe it's the equipment, maybe it's overheating, but no, it's because the air is less dense when there's more heat because the particles spread out further, and they can't get off the ground. That was crazy. So if you
So they didn't teach you that at the Ohio State University?
well, they didn't specifically say it can delay flights.
Okay.
Hobgood did not get in that in depth.
Didn't
Plus, his
get into
specialty is-
comprehension.
His specialty is hurricanes, so he was talking
true.
latent heat, all that stuff. Wasn't really tough, but that was fascinating to me. So
That is.
Well, Phil, I know you're going to type all these stories up and put them on the episode 67 show notes, right?
Yeah, I'm such a great typist. I'll get right
cool.
on that.
Cool. Well, if they're not on there, I'm sure you can find them somewhere, Phil.
They're somewhere. Yeah, these stories.
Somewhere.
We didn't just make all of them up, just a couple of them.
No, they're somewhere.
So, all right, MJ, we got any listener questions or responses?
We have one, but I do want to remind everybody, if you have questions that you want us to talk about on the show, feel free to pose them on Twitter, on Facebook, or you can go to stormfrontfreaks.com and there's a spot there to put questions in as well.
Because it makes us feel like you just don't care if you don't put questions in there.
No, it does, right? And
that's hurtful.
But fortunately tonight, Michael Wilkinson came through for us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Yep, with a comment, and he said he's been gone for several episodes, but he's now able to come back as a regular listener, and he loves the show. So we're happy to have him. And he talked about some of the segments that we've had on the show before, and he's a big fan of some of those various segments that we've run in the past. So we're happy that you're back listening, Michael. Thank you.
Yeah, and MJ was asking about this earlier. We hope we're still working with some other groups to provide some additional segments here as we go into 2019 and we bolster our podcast and add some new things. We hope to have some exciting things to announce for you about some new segments from some other groups that will be part of our show. But I think that just about does it for tonight in this episode of Stormfront Freaks podcast. Thanks for listening and watching, guys. If you like the show, do us a favor before I reveal who our next guest is, and leave a great review on your podcast app. We'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to hear what you think. And don't forget to subscribe to the show. That's a big part of this, is just by hitting your subscribe button on your podcast app. It just makes sure that when we release the next episode, like we just released a bonus episode last week, that's not a part of our normal bi-weekly show. But if you're not subscribed, you're not going to get notified that there's a new one that we've just released, and it'll show up right in your inbox on your podcast app. So it works out really cool. Special thanks to our guest tonight, Jim Williams. Jim, thanks for joining us.
Awesome.
Awesome stories, and we love to hear from people that are just weather geeks like us, so thanks for coming on. Our next episode, folks, is going to be in 2 weeks. We'll be recording live on December 13th with our third Women in Chasing episode. We've got the Weather Network's meteorologist and host of Storm Hunters, Jacqueline Whittle, is going to be with us. So we're going to be excited about that. If you want to watch the recording live, it's going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Just go to our YouTube channel. Just search Stormfront Freaks on YouTube. You'll find our channel. And you can watch it live if you want to do that as well. But for MJ, for Maz, for Brady, and for Jim, tonight I'm going to go ahead and signal the all clear, and we're going to catch you all next time. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks, Jim.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate
All right.
it.
Yeah, Jim, that was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of
Man,
fun.
you were great. Love your stories.
Hey, I'd
Sweet.
love to come on before the season starts and give my predictions for you guys.
Well, let's do that. I'll email you. So here's what I'll do. We'll edit the show and we'll upload the podcast. Usually we'll get uploaded on Sunday. I'll follow up with you on an email probably Sunday or Monday or something, with just so you've got the link and you know where it is. We're also going to edit the video, and that will air on Oklahoma Weather Tracker TV next Thursday night.
Okay.
As well. So I'll give you the links to all that stuff, but I'll give you some potential dates. I know, we might have an open date in April or one in May. We're actually pretty booked up until then, which is cool. But so let's talk about that, because I'd love to have you back and actually talk about the season.
That would be good.
Yeah, and if
Middle
nothing
of May
else,
would
just
be
do
best. That's when I'm honing it
okay.
down and getting it right down to the final, release.
Okay.
So that's
Well,
perfect.
I'll email you. Let's work it out. Yeah, I'll email you. I'll email you
Listen
some
to your
dates.
show, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And even if it's just a cameo, if we can get a little bit of your time, because I'm sure you're probably spread quite thin at that point, beginning of the season. But yeah, even if we could get that might be awesome to say, hey, Jim's back, and let's find out what he's got to say about the season. And
that would be
that'd
awesome.
be cool.
I'd love it.
Awesome. Sounds
By the way,
good.
Phil, what is that behind your back there? It looks like a assault rifle or something. Behind
side?
Your shoulder, your left shoulder.
This one?
Yeah.
It's a Lego.
Ah. Okay.
The Lego assault rifle.
It's my
Oh.
son's. Yeah, it's my son's Lego assault rifle.
Okay.
It's something from Star Wars. Yeah,
Cool.
it's his Lego
All
set
right.
behind me.
It's what it looks like, the tip of a gun, like over
It
looking
did,
against
yeah,
the
it did.
wall.
Yeah, we've got to deal with NRA. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, it's like us or else.
Yeah.
All right.